Hello and welcome to the first World Reimagined Masterclass. This is your essential guide to the World Reimagined. I am Ashley Adjaye and I am the artistic director. And I'm so excited that you are joining us today. And I hope to see your submission in the very near future. So today we are really going to explore the origin story of the World Reimagined. We're going to talk about the vision and also get some of the technical advice that you may need as a open call artist. So we will have on today our co-founder, Dennis Marcus. We will have one of our board members, Ruth Ibegbuna, and we will also have our partner in production, who is coming from Wild in Art, Ben Reed. And I'd like to start off just with a bit of a personal introduction, so you know more about the World Reimagined and why I came to this project and what it means to me. So I started a little over 2 years ago when I spoke to Michelle and to Dennis, the co-founders, about this. It really touched something deep inside of me because my personal history is so connected to the transatlantic slave trade. My family on my mother's side is from Barbados, and for sure that their ancestors are from West Africa. And also, I have family from the American South. I'm American, and we can trace their roots directly back to slavery. So it felt like very much part of my personal history, but also that growing up in the American school system and learning about this part of our history, it never really felt like a full explanation, and it didn't seem to have all of the perspectives that were involved. And my children are now in or have previously been in the British education system, and so we're looking at. I'm interested in how we tell this story, and so when the World Reimagined came into my life, I thought, oh, I want to grab this with both hands because it felt so important and so much a part of my personal story. So here we are today, and I'm incredibly thankful to you, to the artists who will bring this story to life. Your illustration of this is what is going to help guide the conversation about this history. So let's get into some of the origin story of the World Reimagined. So I'd like to invite Dennis Marcus to come speak with me about this. Hi, Dennis.
Hi.
Hi, welcome. So please, can you tell us, how did you and Michelle come up with this? Where did this come from, and why?
Sure. So I'm going to put a strong caveat in place that there is a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old running outside. So if you hear a T-Rex roar or a pterodactyl shriek, I apologize. And secondly, I decided to say thank you for everyone for joining the call and for being interested in the World Reimagined. So Michelle Gale, my co-founder, who you'll know as an actor, a singer, and I met 3 years ago at an event for Nelson Mandela Centenary. And it was an event with Andrew Mangeni, in fact, up there, who was on trial and in prison with Mandela. And inspired by Andrew and his stories, we really talked about the importance of processing history, and not just as an act to look backwards, but actually as essential to looking forward. And you've shared your history, and everybody who's involved in the World Reimagined brings their own perspective and experiences to it, and enriches it in that way. So I'm just going to sort of share mine in terms of how it came about for me, which is that I'm British, but I'm half German, half South African, through my parents. And on the face of it, that's not that promising. But I was very fortunate that my South African family was very involved in the anti-apartheid movement. My granddad was the accountant for the law firm of Mandela and Tambo back in the 50s and 60s. And so, when I was growing up, I had the amazing opportunities to meet some of these amazing leaders and to hear conversations about truth and reconciliation, about the need to process pain and trauma, and seeing how essential that process, that courageous, honest, challenging process was for and it still is for the future of that society, and how much of its progress is dependent on that effort. And obviously Germany's had to do that work as well a couple of times in the last 80 years in a really serious way. And again, both of those societies have done that imperfectly, but they've really tried to do it, and it's been really important to their journeys. And so that's sort of what I shared with Michelle, and the fact that when we moved to the UK, it was relatively clear that that dialogue hasn't been had as openly, as holistically, as courageously, and as accessibly. I went through the English school system, and what I learned about the transatlantic slave trade was very, very limited. And so, and obviously Michelle came to a conversation with her background, as a public figure, but also, with her mum as a community activist, and Michelle as a community activist, for decades. And so we really talked about how can we share this story, how can we invite more people into the conversation, because if we're going to make racial justice a reality in the UK, then we have to look at what we understand about our history and how we understand each other and how we came to be here. Andrew, once shared with me just this, that simple idea that our reality is created by the decisions we make every single day, and those decisions are driven by what we understand about society, about ourselves, about how we came to be here, and our mindsets and attitudes that flow from that around how we connect with one another. And there's so much, there's so much expertise in the space around this history. There are so many community organizations doing amazing work on making racial justice a reality. How can we invite more people into that conversation? That's what we talked about for a good, year or so before we came across sculpture trails. And you're going to hear more about them in a little while. But we came across them in Manchester, where they ran, where Wild and our partners, and you'll meet Ben in a bit, ran Be in the City, and that came after the Manchester Arena bombing. And it wasn't just the public engagement that was important. It wasn't just the awareness raising that was important. It was the fact that the experience of public art and travel and engaging in art sparked conversation, it sparked connection, it connected community, and that was something really exciting for us. So that's sort of where it came from, which is that through this amazing art form, we can not just say, hey, here's some information, off you go. We can actually connect with people's mindsets, with their attitudes, and how they see the world around themselves, and to build community through that, and showcase and celebrate all the amazing work that's already happening. And that's really in the spirit of inviting people into the conversation who might not have had that opportunity before. There's a great Maya Angelou quote that says, when you know better, you've got to do better. This is a chance where we want to say, come on a journey of understanding with us, so we can all know better, so we can all do better, and take our next step to making racial justice a reality.
Beautiful. Wow. Thank you, Dennis. This is exactly what excites me about this project. I will say that the artistic program is one piece of the project. It's actually expansive, isn't it? It's very holistic in its approach. At least we try to be as holistic and thoughtful as possible. I'd love for you to give us a little bit more information about our learning program and our community program and how it fits with our artistic program.
Sure. So everything that we do is built on the journey of discovery that we created, with artists, with activists, with historians, that provides a narrative framework. And I know we've got a masterclass coming up in a couple of weeks with Fiona Compton from our board, as well as Matthew Smith, who leads the UCL's Centre for the Study of the Legacy of British Slavery. But they really create a framework for the really holistic story we want to tell, that's chronological, all the way from before the transatlantic slave trade all the way through to the future. And along that, along those 9 themes, we're also building a history collection. We're going to be working with cultural institutions, historians in all of our host cities to essentially contribute their collections and stories from their archives into, really accessible history, 300-word stories and pictures that bring that to life, that people can explore. It's going to be really exciting. And that's part of the trail experience. When you go through the trails, you can dive into that, but it's also then connected to the learning program and to the community program. So the journey discovery sort of sits as the foundation of everything we do. So alongside the artistic program that you're leading and the main trails, it's going to be the learning program. And the learning program essentially is exactly the same ethos and intention, which is how could we create an experiential, a creative program for students across the country to engage with the 9 themes of the journey of discovery. So we created one set of resources for primary schools, and then one set of resources for secondary schools and colleges, where the primary school ones speak to Mother Africa, our first theme, and then the secondary schools and colleges speak to all 9 themes. And all of those resources have been created to, with artists, with creatives, with subject matter experts, with people like the cast of Hamilton, with Floella Benjamin, with a poet and playwright Inoa Ellams. I name drop. Like just an amazing group of people who, lent us their expertise and their knowledge and their perspective, which has created a really exciting set of resources. And those resources sit alongside a leadership in teaching series that we're developing, which provides support for teachers and guidance for teachers around how do you create safe spaces, how do you create, or how do you think about power and privilege, how do you handle difficult dialogue? Because obviously it's really important that, it's not just about the resources that are delivered, it's how they're delivered. And, teachers have such a powerful role as racial justice leaders in their school community. And they are those leaders, whether that's intentional or not. Students are looking at them all the time. So we know that for many people, this is going to be a new journey. So we want to provide as much support as possible. And for that program is free for all schools across the country, leading to a poetic creative expression at the end. But then in our host cities, schools also have the option to take part in creating their own globe for a small fee. And those school created globes at the end of those, at the end of the delivery of those resources, are then hosted in the local community when, at the same time as our trails are live in the different cities across August to October 2022. So that's the learning program, which is super exciting. And, we've got some amazing support from the Arts Council, from the Paul Hamlin Foundation, from the Portal Trust, to be able to make that really accessible for schools in our host cities. And then that sits alongside the community program, which is going to see one community coordinator in each of our host cities, where they're working with community organizations on the ground who are already working on making racial justice a reality and have got events on and activities on that we can highlight through our trails, so that as people go and visit the trails, and they go on their phone and scan the QR code, and they want to get involved, we can go look at that amazing community organization over there, or that's an event you can take part of over there, just to really connect that enthusiasm that we believe will generate into a real commitment into taking action and connecting with those people who are doing the work on the ground. And then as well as that, really making sure that we connect and invite into the conversation community organizations who've got deep relationships with the communities that they serve, but might not necessarily have engaged with this subject before. So also inviting them into the conversation, because really, the World Reimagined, like, we have no pretense that we are doing anything particularly original in terms of this work. There are so many amazing organizations working in this space. What we're trying to do is create a platform and a moment to spotlight them, to highlight them, to celebrate them, to share their work, and expand the community of people who are involved in the work of making a racial justice reality. So those are the programs. And at the end of the trails, when we auction off the globes, That money will ensure the learning program stays accessible. It'll make sure our community coordinators can stay in post for an extra year and continue to support community organizations in our host cities, and create a grant making program for racial justice projects and organizations across the country.
Thank you for that. It's so important as we look at the legacy of this project and how it lives on after the 3 months that we exhibit the artwork. So thank you for that explanation. All right, let's bring in Ruth Ibegbuna to talk to us a bit about her perspective. Thank you, Ruth, for being here.
Hi.
Hi. So Ruth, you're one of our wonderful board members, but you also have a day job and are doing some really important work. And I'd love for you to tell us a bit about that.
Okay, well, I always smile about the fact that I'm a board member, because I said to myself a couple of years ago, I'm not taking on any more board responsibilities. I'm done. Everyone wants me to be a board member as a Black woman in the north of England. And then, I found about this work and I literally hounded Dennis and Michelle until they had to accept me onto the board. So I hope I'm a welcome board member. But the reason I was just so passionate about this work was because for at least 20 years since I became a teacher, I've known that this project needed to exist. I've not articulated it quite as beautifully, but I've known that this project needed to exist. And, I was that Black girl in the classroom in the north of England whose story was reduced to a picture of a slave ship and 6 weeks of study of that, and then left traumatized, and then nothing else. And that was your history. There's your Black history. And then we read To Kill a Mockingbird, and then we're done. And so the idea of a program that actually takes us and starts off with Mother Africa and educates young people that actually Black history is so much more than that, and this story is more than Black history. It's everyone's history. It's global history, and shows the UK's role in that. I joke a lot about the fact that my dad always has said since I was a little girl, the British don't like uncomfortable truths. You cannot have these conversations with British people. And this is a very beautiful way of enabling British people to have a conversation that they have found historically impossible.
Yeah, it is a challenging history. It is it evokes so many different emotions from across so many different ethnic backgrounds and races and ages, and it's so important that little Black girls, little girls across the UK encounter this as more than the reductive story that we've heard for so long. And so one of the things that excites me about this project is that we already have somewhat of a canon of images of what the transatlantic slave trade was. And this project is going to bring so many new images and so many thoughtful and complex images to this canon. That's one of the things that for me feels really particularly special, and one of my joys as the artistic director is to bring that into the world and have that. But I do want to hear about your work and the work that you do day to day, in addition to being a wonderful board member.
Oh, thank you. And there's just something you said there. I think what is going to be wonderful about this is that it humanizes everyone involved. I think, those who kind of fought for emancipation, like let's not just have the heroes and the silent, right? Let's humanize those people who were put onto those boats. Let's understand kind of what they went through. Let's empathize, but at the same time, let's not just have these kind of 3 or 4 heroic white men that saved the day. Let's look at that as well, and let's see kind of what the motivations were, what the politics, what the economics. So for me, that's just really key. And to answer your question, in terms of the work that I do, everything that I do is about kind of young people and change making, and for young people to find their place in the world and to feel that they understand kind of systems and they understand how to think critically about what they do. So one of the programs I'm working on at the moment with young people is for them to design their own school that's about creating a more soulful educational experience, and to encourage young people to be change makers and critical thinkers, and for them to put their own history at the centre of understanding who they are. Because if we don't understand where we're from and what has brought our ancestors to this point, then we can't go forward. We can't go forward and understand the future. So we're actually creating a school called Rekindle that's based around how to get young people to think critically, respect their history, and forge their own future. So this fits so beautifully with everything that I believe in.
Well, and thank you. And that is why you are a board member.
Hey.
Your depth of knowledge and everything that you bring to us as a group and as an organization is so deeply appreciated. So thank you. Let's bring on Ben Reed, who is creative director at Wild in Art. Hi, Ben.
Hello, how are we doing? Nice to see everybody.
Thanks, welcome. So Ben, please, can you tell us about Wild in Art, what it is, and how you bring to life so many different visuals, and what it is that you do in the company?
Yeah, by all means. I mean, firstly, may I just say that I'm delighted this project's actually happening. It feels like a very long time ago that I met Dennis in a coffee shop in Manchester. I think you mentioned it was over 3 years now. And we sat here now sort of talking to artists about this project is extremely exciting. I think we all agree it's a conversation that's needed to happen for a long time. And I think this is a fantastic and a really sort of clever way of facilitating that conversation. You know, the World Reimagined team have really impressed Wild in Art with your vision, ambition, you know, application and tenacity in what's been a really difficult and testing 18 months. And so I applaud you, and I hope that everyone on this call really appreciates the amount of work that's gone in behind the scenes to sort of provide this opportunity. I think it's, you know, it's really, really exciting. So what do I do? So my role as creative director for Wild in Art is to basically ensure that we remain relevant as an organisation, that we're constantly moving forward creatively. At Wild in Art, we've partnered with many organisations to deliver over about 90 projects now in the UK, Europe, Africa, South America, Australasia, since we started back in 2007. Our projects have engaged literally millions of people. We've raised over £12 million for charities. This year alone, our projects have raised over £2 million for various charities, hospices, children's hospitals, up and down the UK. We had a successful auction the other night in Worcester that raised over £400,000 for a local hospice. So as a model, really good. Yeah, so we're really, really pleased for them. They work really hard. And so, you know, and also as well as sort of raising awareness about particular causes, or in this case, a particular, you know, social issue, social injustice, if you like, it also provides thousands of paid work opportunities and showcasing opportunities for artists. So the fact that you're here today basically obviously means that you're aware of that opportunity. So hopefully you can come away with a bit more clarity about the next steps to maximise the opportunity. So, I mean, the idea of an art trail isn't new. You know, our founding director, Charlie, actually sort of delivered 100 cow parade events internationally before I decided to set up Wild in Art. I think he'd heard every cow pun in the world. So, but I think, to remain relevant, we're always constantly looking for new ways to develop, improve our offer by working with new exciting partners. And I think this partnership is, you know, it's got the whole team's ears pricked up. You know, they're constantly asking for updates and developments and everything that's happening behind the scenes. You know, I'm not going to share all the details now. I mean, Dennis has dropped a few names, but there's far more to come, I'm sure. You know, it's exciting. And I think, you know, I manage a small team to support our partners to deliver the best projects possible. You know, they harness creativity of artists, which is you guys, to help them tell a story using visual language on essentially a very clever piece of paper, which is a 3D canvas, in this case, a globe. And so, you know, by linking multiple uniquely painted sculptures and creating a trail, it helps create a sort of critical mass of sculptures, and it really increases the impact. And the fact that in this case, there's going to be 100 plus sculptures in sort of 8 cities across England and Wales. You know, it's unique. We've done national projects in Scotland before, but never a project across England and Wales in so many different locations. So it's going to be big, you know, it's going to be huge, this project. So what excites me about it, I mean, the ambition, you know, it's verging on audacious, to be honest. It's bold, it's essential, you know, the reach of it, it's national, it's in major cities, and also the caliber of artists, you know, the international artists that you're bringing into the conversation, you know, some very, very high profile individuals and organizations. That means this project is really going to get global attention. You know, I think it already is picking up ears, you know, across the pond. So I think it's going to be a really, really important, impactful project. So, you know, good luck about the possibility of getting involved.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for that. And as you mentioned, some of our artists, Yinka Shonibare is our founding artist who when we brought this idea to him, he conceptualized the sphere that we are going to use as our canvas. And his original piece of work is called The World Reimagined, which is what we have now named the entire project. So it's interesting when you go from maybe a 2D art to a 3D art. And so I'm very curious if you have some advice for our open call artists. Some of them maybe have already worked in sculpture, but many of them will be painters or will work in embroidery or mosaics. So if you can talk to us a bit about that, that would be great. And any advice that you can give.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think obviously, you know, you're going to be starting to think about your designs, and initially the submission will be with a paper-based submission. So you're going to sort of essentially work in 2D, but then you need to bear in mind when you're working on your design that it is going to be scaled up. You're going to basically be working on a 1.8 meter globe, which is a 3D sculpture, which is made from fiberglass and a resin composite, which obviously is not like working on paper. So you need to think about what materials you're going to use to realize that design, what techniques you're going to use. And, you know, don't overcomplicate your designs in terms of the design or proposed materials, because some artists I've worked with previously, particularly those that tend to be sort of designers, are used to working quite small. And I think when they tend to scale that up, they're really challenged with how they can apply the paint to get that particular finish that they've got on a digital screen. You know, and they find themselves doing layers and layers and layers and layers of paint using acrylic. So really think about obviously how you're going to achieve those colors, and you know how you're going to work the materials, because you don't want to be spending, you know, every working day for, you know, 100 days realizing this design, because obviously, you know, if you get the gig, so to speak, then obviously there's an expectation that the design you presented in 2D, that's how it's going to look on a 3D product at the end of it. And so really think about that. You know, it's supposed to be fun at the end of the day. So you don't want something that completely takes over your life and becomes this thing that you've got to do after work, or, you know, you've got to go and do over the weekends just to get it finished for the deadline. So that's something to really think about. The other thing is, you know, if you get to the commissioning stage, and probably there is going to be another conversation further down, is really test your materials about how they might react with the varnish. If you've got an idea, particularly like gold in particular, it's quite difficult to come up with a gold finish on a particular design. When you put the varnish on, it can sort of create a bit of a matte finish to it and really take some of that coloration out of it. So have a think about that, you know, some of the colors that you're going to use and how you're going to achieve it. And do bear in mind that once a sculpture is painted, we will apply a specialist varnish to it, which has got, you know, UV filter, it's got anti-graffiti qualities, and, you know, it gives it a really nice glossy finish as well. So have a think about that. Obviously, from a brief point of view, there's really specific themes that you're going to be responding to. There's a really sort of chunky, you know, sort of content, so to speak, to get your brushes into, get your creative juices flowing. But obviously, really bear in mind that these sculptures are going to be in the public domain. You know, they're going to be in the streets, in public spaces, you know, 24/7. You're going to be sort of children, there's going to be pensioners, you know, all in between that are going to be seeing these. So you need to approach, you know, have a think about the environment. It needs to be appropriate for the environment they're going to be showcased in. So we always say that design shouldn't be trying to avoid being overtly sexual, religious or political. just so that, you know, obviously the subject matter in its own right is opening up a really interesting conversation, but try and avoid those other things as well that perhaps might offend members of the public. Also, we do ask that the designs don't specifically reference any particular brands or businesses. You know, this is an art project. It's not sort of, it's not a marketing opportunity for. There's going to be commercial sponsorship to cover the cost of everything. You know, the costs for delivering this project are considerable. However, obviously in your designs, we do ask that you do avoid particular references to any brands or businesses within that. Also bear in mind that ultimately, you know, someone's going to look to buy this sculpture at auction. You know, it's most likely it's going to be displayed in the foyer at a business, potentially it's going to be gifted to a museum, a public building, or someone's garden potentially, or someone's, you know, someone lives in a very nice house in their lounge. I know someone bought a bee sculpture in Manchester, ended up in his bathroom. I'm not sure how big his bathroom was, but there you go. So somebody's going to want to look at this for many, many years. It's going to be a focal point, a talking point. So really think about that from a design, colour, finish, materials point of view. You know, how that's going to be end up in someone's, you know, sort of showcasing space. A few other things I'd recommend: engage with the project at all stages, you know, of our social media. You know, really there will be sort of marketing guidelines. So at the design decoration stage, when the event goes live, when the project's there at the auction, there's lots of opportunities you can really engage with this project to really raise your profile. Because as we've alluded to, this project is going to be globally significant. So I think there's an opportunity. There's going to be literally, you know, 100 plus artists that get the opportunity to get their work seen. So really sort of think about how you can maximize the opportunity and really promote your engagement in positive ways through social media and all the channels that are available to you. Obviously, when the sculptures are on the streets, sometimes things happen to them. Please don't take it personally. It's not a personal assault on your design or your artwork. It's just, chances are it's been some idiot that's had too many drinks on the way home, and he's just been affronted with a giant globe and doesn't know what to do with it, you know. But it's not a personal thing. So please, occasionally things can happen to these designs, these sculptures, because they're in the public domain. Please don't take it personally. You know, these things happen, and we work with fiberglass for a reason, that it's very easy to remedy anything that should happen to a sculpture. Essentially, it's like papier-mâché, it's layers of different things, so we can fix things very quickly. Another thing, and probably the last point I'd like to make really, is just network with your peers on this project. You know, you're all going to be working, collaborate, you know, on this project at the same time and going through the same journey. So, you know, share best practice, share tips about materials, you know, attend as many of these conversations, you know, sort of things that you can, and the events that you can, because I think there's going to be a once in a lifetime opportunity to sort of work with these people. So really sort of, you know, take the opportunity that's presented to you.
Thank you, Ben. That's a great point, and something that I should bring up, that for the artists who are commissioned, we will have sessions during the period of time where you'll be working on your art, on your sphere. So we will have an opportunity to create a space for those artists and to have dialogue between each other, for motivation, for information, and tips. So definitely we will have that opportunity to share. And I'd also just like to share some of the criteria that the jurors are going to be looking for in globes, in spheres. So artistic expression, of course, that's quite broad, but we have artist Chris O'Feely, who's on the jury, who educated at the Royal College of Art, and he will be looking at, as we all will, the curators. We have Renee and then also Zoe, who are going to be really assessing the art and the artistic expression. Then we also have the thematic expression, which Dennis mentioned at the beginning, really staying within the framework that we've built of the journey of discovery, and making sure that whatever it is you're trying to express lands under one of those themes. The themes are broad, so it shouldn't be too difficult, but just really think through that relationship to the theme and the visuals that you end up producing. And then, of course, historical accuracy is very important. One of the most powerful things that artists have is their imagination, right? So of course we want you to use your imagination, but because this is an education project, we have to make sure that there is historical accuracy. And so there are lots of ways to ensure that what you are doing is historically accurate, whether resources that we provide or that you find in your local library or in other databases that are available. Please do use them. Please do ground your ideas in history. And then lastly, as Ben mentioned, public consumption. This is a public art project. So we need to be aware of what that means. That means your 3-year-old niece, and that means your 89-year-old grandparent. We need to make sure that everybody can access this art and feel as though they can interact with it. We're trying to draw people into the subject matter and to get that dialogue going. So please keep that in mind as you grapple with what is undoubtedly, a heavy and serious topic. So I would also discourage using texture. We can manage some texture. We have some people who will be doing embroidery and mosaics and a bit of texture, but really from a public health and safety perspective, we can't have protrusions. We can't have anything that would be unsafe for someone to rub up against, and also for the integrity of your art piece. We want to make sure that someone doesn't come along and pull something off of it and ultimately undermine what you have created. So let's keep the texture low. And then as you're in the process of submitting your designs, if you have any technical issues there with the submission process, Parker Harris is our partner in all of these submissions. And so if you scroll to the bottom of their website, you'll see contact information. They can help you if you're having difficulty uploading something, then please do go to them. And lastly, I must remind you that the submissions are due December 31st, 5 p.m. GMT, or very much before that. You can submit today. You don't have to wait to the end, but that is the last point that you can submit. So I will now shift over to our audience and the questions we have from our audience. So the first question is an anonymous question, but as a white artist, I am struggling with whether it's appropriate to submit a design and effectively compete with a Black artist and potentially take their voice away. This feels uncomfortable to me, and I wonder if you could address this issue. So thank you, audience member. Thank you for that question. This is a critical question, really, because this is not a Black art project. It's not a white art project. It's not any race of project. This is a public art project. And in order for it to be successful, we need engagement from everyone. So, so I would shift your perspective on that rather than feeling as though you're taking away someone else's voice. I would say you are contributing your voice, which matters, into the discussion. Dennis, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think, what's really important, and we sort of always said this is, this is all of our history. Ruth shared with me a very powerful tweet the other day from somebody who's working with us on our education program, Bilal, who, and he said, one of the problems is that slavery is taught as the history of Black people and not the history of white people. That's something quite profound. And I think, if you think about what it takes to make racial justice a reality, it's going to take all of us to contribute our bit. So we all have something to contribute, and we all have, value to add. I think, the strong piece is really that, this is a challenging area for some people. It's a new area. I think it's making sure that you engage with it with the right intention, with serious purpose, and also with an open mind to learning and the fact that sometimes you don't know. On the journey of developing this so far, I've learned an incredible amount, and it's really important to understand that growth is important if we're going to change our society for all of us. Ruth, would you add to that?
Yeah, between us, I think we've covered it. I just think there's something in the question that's about working with discomfort. And that was a very brave question that someone's put in there about something that they're uncomfortable with. This whole program is about working with discomfort, and all of us just learning to sit with discomfort for a while and then work out how we want to react to that. So I think that discomfort's okay, to raise these questions are okay, but then I'd still ask people to then step in, because this is what this work is about.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Thank you for that. So next question. The amazing words by Dennis and Ruth brought tears to my eyes as someone that has been doing anti-racist and racial justice work and was attacked. How are the globes going to be secured against vandalism? So I will bring this question to you, Ben.
Yes, obviously the sculptures are made from fiberglass, and they're going to be attached to plinths, which weigh the best part of a ton. So that they're going to be, going to be very difficult to move the object. And also, as I mentioned earlier, we do provide a specialist varnish that's used by local authorities all over the UK that's got anti-graffiti qualities. So should there be any graffiti on it, then there's these wipes that have a particular solution in it that takes the solvent off immediately. And the other reason why we use fiberglass is that, should someone want to, sort of throw something at it, or something like that, and if there is cracks, it is a material that it is very easily fixable, with the right people, with the right skills. So we'll have a maintenance team on standby to respond very quickly should anything happen. And then basically we can very easily take the sculptures off the streets and then replace them within a matter of days. So we are geared up for responding to things. We've done, as I said, 90 of these events. I think everything that has happened to a sculpture has probably happened to them by now. So basically we've got a risk register which allows us how to respond to any eventuality.
Perfect. Okay, great. Thank you for that.
Could I just add to that possibly?
Yes, please, Dennis.
So first of all, I'm very sorry that you had the experience that you had, and I think it's important to not acknowledge that. And I think there may be things like that come up during the trails, of course, and as well as the physical repair. I think one of the things that we're really focused on is identifying how we can also provide or connect to mental health support throughout the World Reimagined, because we realize that whether it's a certain type of response or that kind of abuse, or whether it's quite frankly the engagement and the subject matter itself is going to raise up a lot of challenges. So we're very conscious of that, and we're being very intentional around how we can guide people to support to make sure that this is a very positive experience for people.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. That's a critical piece of this, and something that we, as Dennis said, will have resources for, and will certainly engage that aspect, the mental health aspect of this challenging topic. The next question we have is from Peter. There is no design template this time. So do we do a single sketch? Yes, you do a single sketch. That will be in landscape. So of course, ultimately, like we said, it's a 3D figure. So we know that it's not going to look exactly like it does on the sketch, but conceptually, we would want to understand what we'll be wrapping the sphere. Anything else, Dennis, do you want to add to that?
No, I don't think so.
No. Ben? No? Okay.
No, I think, yeah, I think, the idea is obviously it's going to be, essentially you want a landscape image that's going to be applied, applied around a 3D sphere. So I think, there's no template required on this particular instance.
Okay, great. And another question, are there any UK politicians involved in this project? Dennis?
So we have wonderful ambassadors and board members. So one of our board members is Lord Jonathan Oates, and then Baroness Floella Benjamin and Baroness Lola Young are part of our ambassador group, and Lord Michael Hastings is one of our patrons. But this is entirely non-party political. Party politics has got absolutely nothing to do with the World Reimagined. This is for all of our society to come together, and and we want all of our society to come together for it.
Thank you. And a question from Diana: will the anti-graffiti varnish work on textiles? That is for you, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, we've had designs previously that with textiles and sort of applique and stuff like that. So with lots of layers of it, it's a two-part varnish. Essentially, it's a clear glaze. So with enough layers of it, then we could get that finish on there. I've seen it done before. Again, we just need to test in advance just to make sure how the materials we're proposing to do would react to said varnish. But yes, I think definitely, it would work. And I suppose as well, there is a consideration that when you're looking to design the scales, most of the locations are probably going to be outside, but should a design that was really strong, that was only suitable for indoor display came into the consideration, I'm sure that a suitable indoor location could be found to accommodate something.
Thank you for that. Okay, so next question. Can an artist be commissioned to do more than one globe? So the short answer is no. We expect to have one globe, one artist. I know in other trails there have been one artist who has done more than one sculpture, but because of the national nature of this, and even international, we have international artists we'll be working with. Just the size of it and the participation level of it, we expect that each sculpture will only have one artist, or one artist will be represented in the entire sculpture collection. So, Dennis, Ruth, anything? No, good, okay. We have a question from Sandra. Where would we be creating our globe? And do we get help with a workspace? Yes, you do get help with a workspace. So in each of our cities, we are going to have a studio, either ideally, in a city center, but it might be, on the edge of the city, depending on just what we can get. We're in the process of scouting and negotiating to get that space so that our artists will have free space to produce this art. The globe is 1.4 meters by 1.8 meters, including the plinth. So it's a significant size, and we recognize that many artists will not have studio space large enough, or even if they did have studio space, it may not fit through the front door of that studio space because it's larger than the average standard door. So we're working on that, and that we will release that information to the commissioned artist. We are trying to make sure that, or we will make sure that that space is accessible, accessible by everyone who, whether it's public transport or whether you are in a wheelchair or have any needs or disabilities that need to be addressed so that you can participate. We're looking at that, and we'll make sure that it's accessible. So from Jane, next question. How are you ensuring that all the themes will be covered and artists won't just choose the same one or two themes? So good question. Thank you. We do have 9 themes, and we will have over 100 globes. Like I said before, the nature of this project is national and international even. So we are expecting a significant amount of submissions. And so I don't anticipate that we would have one category that's just not addressed. If we did, by some kind of strange stroke, we would then go to an artist who has contributed a submission that we find really compelling and see if they would be willing to look at a different topic. But really, we expect that we won't have to do that. Dennis?
I think that's right. I think it's also possible for people to submit multiple designs. Is that right, Ashley? Across
Yes.
the themes. So you can always give us options.
Yes, exactly. You can submit all 9 if you want, and then we won't have this problem. But yeah, please engage. We're excited to have you as artists, and I just want to end on a note of thanks. Thank you to the artists. Thank you to my colleagues and team members and partners. Thank you, Ben, Ruth, Dennis, and the behind the scenes team that helped make this possible today. We really look forward to your submissions. Remember, December 31st this year, 5 o'clock. Please get them in, and please also spread the word. This is, again, a project we want everyone to have a voice in, and so we'd love to have as many people as possible engaging, and we look forward really to seeing what you all produce. So thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you at our next masterclass that Dennis mentioned will be with Fiona Compton of Know Your Caribbean. Check out her Instagram account. She's got a phenomenal resource that she's created that will be very helpful in this project, actually. And she's also one of our wonderful board members. And then we will also have Matthew Smith, who is a historian and also the director of the Center for the Legacy of British Slavery at UCL. So, and he also is one of our jurors. So we'll hear from him about what he has learned over many decades of research, and also how you can engage in research and make sure, again, that your globe is historically accurate. So we look forward to seeing you for the next one, and we have 2 more coming up after that. So please check out the website and also sign up. Thank you so much. All right, bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Dennis.